Assalamu alaikum lovelies. I welcome you again to my channel. I'm Abiola Balikis, and in today's video I'll be taking you through how to make this lovely two-in-one waterfall jacket. You can decide to wear the Ankara side of the jacket or you wear the plain black side. If you are a returning viewer, I say thank you so much for always coming back to watch my videos. And if this is your first time here, kindly click the subscribe button below. Before we get started, the question that might come to mind is that how many yards of fabrics will be needed for each side of our jacket? Well, I think this depends on individuals. It depends on how you actually want the outcome of your jacket to look like. So you have to consider so many things. You have to consider what actual length you want for your jacket, how lengthy you want the collar to be, your hip circumference, then how drapey you want the frontal part of your jacket to be. So for instance now for this jacket, the actual length I want for the jacket is 35 inches. Then the collar length I want it to be 9 inches. Then I'll be adding 1 inch seam allowance to it. So 35 inches plus 9 inches plus 1 inch, that is 45 inches, which means I'll be needing a fabric length of 45 inches for each side. Wideness of the fabric, I'll consider my hip circumference. Then I'll be adding either 12 to 16 inches to it. So my own hip circumference is 40 inches. Then I'll add 16 inches to it because I want the frontal part of the jacket to be drapey, to be very drapey. So 40 inches plus 16 inches, that is 56 inches. So the amount of fabric we'll be needing for each side of the jacket now will be 45 inches by 56 inches, which is roughly above 1.5 yards of fabric. For each side of the jacket now, we'll be needing 2 inches above 1.5 yards of fabrics. So another measurement we'll need to consider is our back length, which is our shoulder length, and our armhole depth. So my back length is 16 inches and my armhole depth is 8 inches. Now let's get started. The first thing I'll do is to fold my wideness into two, which I already did there. Then fold the length also into two like this. So this side that we have here is my length folded into two, and the other side is the wideness. So don't forget that because both our wideness and length are presently on fold, the measurement has reduced by half. So we are now working with 28 inches for our wideness and 22.5 inches for the length. So from this side, which is my wideness, I'm going to chalk that 28 inches. Then I'm gradually going to reduce the measurement just to go and connect it with our length, which is 22.5 inches, because we are trying to cut an oval shape from this fabric. So from 28 inches I'll reduce to 26 inches, to 25 inches, to 24 inches until I connect it with the length, which is 22.5 inches. Then I'm going to cut it out. After cutting out, we are now going to unfold the length only. The wideness will still remain folded. So this is what we have now. So our length, which is 45 inches, has gone back to normal, but the wideness is still folded. So from this edge, we'll measure our collar length. Remember I said I'll be using 9 inches for my own collar length. So if you are using a measurement different from this, if you are using another collar length, you try and measure your collar length. Then from that point, I will now measure my back length divided by 2. Don't forget I said my own back length, my shoulder length is 16 inches. So divided by 2 is 8 inches. I will chalk it. Then from that point, I will now measure my armhole depth. My armhole depth is 8 inches. But if you don't know what your armhole depth is, you can actually use the standard measurement, which is also your back length or shoulder length divided by 2. So I will now try to connect the beginning point and the end point of my armhole depth with my ruler. So I will just chalk it and connect to form a straight line. So on this line, I will now try to just shape it a little, just to shape my armhole a little. Then I will cut it out. So here I've cut it out. The next thing we'll just be doing now is to fold the wideness of our black fabric into two and lay our Ankara fabric on it to cut out also. So after cutting, I'm going to use the Ankara fabric as a guide to cut the armhole of the black fabric also. So after cutting it out, I'm going to notch round on the armhole. The reason we are notching round on this armhole is to make it easy for us to stitch later on. So after that, we are going to lay our Ankara fabric on the table, the negative side facing up, and we are going to hem round with our hand needle and thread. So the purpose of doing this is just to make it easy for us to join the two armholes, which is the armhole of the Ankara fabric and the plain fabric, easily to get together when we are about to finish up our jacket. So I know this can be stressful, but the end result is what really matters. So when we are done with that, this is what we will have. You can see the outcome is already given, right? So if you think this method is stressful, another thing you can do is to use your pressing iron. So the same process, you lay the fabric down, the negative side facing up, and you carefully fold in the notch edges and press with your iron. While ironing, you might find some edges difficult to fold in. All you need is just to re-notch and you continue to iron. When we are done with that, this is what we are going to have. You can see how neat the edge is already without even sewing. So we are going to repeat the same thing to our black fabric. You place the negative side up, then you bring in the notches carefully and press with your iron. Now we are going to place the fabrics on each other, the positive side facing each other. I'm so sorry, what I forgot to mention earlier is that before you unfold each fabrics, make sure you notch the center, because it is this center that will serve as a guide for us when we are placing them on each other like this. So we'll place the notches on each fabrics on each other and we are going to pin round. So we just continue to carefully pin round like this. When we get to the bottom part, we are going to measure 5 inches. So this 5 inches, we'll measure it and chalk it. It will serve as the space for us to turn our cloth in out when we are done sewing. So after that 5 inches, we continue to pin down. So we continue to pin down until we get to the center part of the fabric again. Then when we are done, we are going to take it to our machine and sew, leaving that 5 inches. Once we are done sewing, we are now going to turn our cloth in out from that 5 inches we left the other time. So just take your time and carefully turn in out. So after turning in out, we are now going to close up this 5 inches hole. But because we don't want it to be obvious that this is where we used to turn our cloth in out, so we are just going to continue to sew from inside. So you carefully turn it inwards like this and continue to sew until you are unable to continue. So just to reduce the hole at least to a larger extent. So So you carefully place on your machine and continue sewing. So once you are unable to continue sewing, then you can just remove it. And now you can see that our hole has reduced to about 2 inches, which is good. So now we are going to carefully stitch on the edge. So you make sure you carefully and neatly stitch, but because we don't want it to be obvious that that is the spot we used to turn our cloth in out. So after stitching, this is what we have. So now we are now going to take it to our ironing board and give it a good press. So you make sure you press round, especially the edges of the cloth. Now we are going to give our jacket the final touch, which is to close up our armholes. So we are going to pin down with our pins round the armhole, and we are going to our machine to sew round neatly on the edge. So we don't want a situation whereby after stitching, the plain side will now be showing on the Ankara side, or the Ankara side will be showing on the plain side. So you have to carefully place them on each other here and pin down. And this is the reason why we had earlier iron in our notch edges, or if it was that you aim it round with your hand needle and thread. This was the reason why we did that, so that it will be easy for us to stitch together now. So you did this to this armhole, and on the second armhole also you are going to pin down with your pins. So after that, we are going to take it to our machine and sew round. After doing that, this is what we will have. You can see how neat my armhole is. The Ankara side is not showing at all on the plain side, and the plain side also is not showing at all on the Ankara side. So I want you to give me your best just like this. And with this, we have come to the end of the tutorial. I hope you find it beneficial. So if you are yet to subscribe to my channel, this is the right time to click on the subscribe button below. Thank you. See you in my next video.